Ryan Manning. I'm the founder of Manning Asylum Law, which is an immigration law firm that focuses on asylum. I used to be an asylum officer. I was at the Houston Asylum Office for about 2.5 years, and before that, I was a diplomat for 8 years, and so I did the visa work and some other stuff related to refugees. So I've got 11 years and a half, actually, of experience with the government's two main agencies for asylum and refugee affairs. And I use that experience now to help folks all over the country get asylum in the United States, okay? And, all right, so reason number one for asylum applications, and this is super common, is what they call the 1-year filing deadline, okay? So there's this general rule that says that you need to apply for asylum during your first year in the United States. So if you come and you wait more than a year, you're prohibited from applying for asylum. Now, here's the good thing. There are a couple of exceptions to that rule, and I'm going to tell you briefly about those in just a second. But let me just stress that this is a major reason for asylum application rejections. I saw a statistic recently that I think it was something like a third of all rejections, I think this was in immigration court context, are because of this 1-year filing deadline, that people waited too long and they only applied for asylum after they had already been here a year, okay? And there's all kinds of reasons for why people don't apply for asylum on time. Tons of people just don't know about it, right? They come here and maybe they're truly fleeing their country as refugees, truly afraid of being harmed there, and they want protection here, right? But they just don't know that there exists this mechanism that they have to go and actually, submit this application form to the government. And even if they do know that the process exists, it's difficult to manage on your own. Now, a lot of people just aren't in a position to be able to do that and to get all of the information that they need to put together an asylum application. And, if obviously a lawyer can help with all that, but a lot of people, they just don't know how to get in contact with the right lawyer, or maybe they can't afford a lawyer, or they can't find one that they feel like they can trust. So whatever the reason is, applying for asylum after you've been here a year can make things really tough. Now, thankfully, there are a couple of exceptions, and a lot of people don't know this. And I talk to people all the time who say, "Oh, really? Another immigration lawyer told me that I had no chance because I've been here for 3 or 4 years." And it turns out that after I talk to them, I see that, there's actually a really good chance that you apply for an exception. Because there's kind of two excuses, right? Where if one of them applies to you, you can apply for asylum even if you've been here for more than a year. I'm not going to go into great detail, but I want to mention them so that, if it sounds to you, you think, okay, that could be me, then you'll know that, hey, maybe there's hope for you even though you've been here for more than a year, and you can look into it farther or know that it's something you should talk to an immigration lawyer about. So one of them is called changed circumstances, and that's where something changes such that maybe in the past you wouldn't have had such a good asylum claim, you didn't have that much of a reason to apply for asylum, but now something changed, and because of that, it's now much more likely that you would be harmed in your country, and that it's more likely that you could actually win asylum. And what's an example of this? So if, let's say, for example, your country that you're from changes a law after you've already been here in the United States 1 year, 2, even 5 years, even longer. If they change a law and because of that law you would be harmed for a reason that qualifies you for asylum, then that would be a changed circumstance. So for example, we'll see in East Africa, we've seen countries that pass these laws against sodomy, basically these anti-gay laws that if someone was gay and was living in the United States, they might not have had that much of a reason to fear going back, but now with this new law, it's like, geez, I could be arrested and imprisoned long term and harmed because of this. So that'd be a changed circumstance. But they can also be circumstances in your life, and just things about you that change and make it to where, okay, now you've got a good reason to apply for asylum, and there's a better chance now that you could actually win asylum. All right, so the other thing is what they call an extraordinary circumstance. And this one probably applies more commonly, and applies to a lot of people who don't even know that they can benefit from this exception. And this is when one of the scenarios where we see this is where it just wouldn't be reasonable to expect a person to apply during their first year here because of things that were going on like in their life. Like if someone is deeply depressed, which happens a lot with asylum seekers, right? Because of what they've been through, and they're deeply depressed, and they're having trouble functioning, carrying out daily activities. Well, we wouldn't really expect that person to be able to apply for asylum. So this could be what they call an extraordinary circumstance. As long as that circumstance, the thing that is extraordinary and keeps you from applying for asylum, as long as that circumstance exists during your first year in the United States, you might be able to qualify for this exception. Now, there's one that is really common and really important because a lot of people benefit from it and they don't even know that they could benefit from it. And this is an extraordinary circumstance called maintenance of status, where if you are in the United States and you keep a legal immigration status, then you can apply for asylum even if you've been here 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Where we see this most often is with students and people who come on like a long-term business visa, like an H-1B or maybe an L visa, and they may have been here for multiple years. But if you come as a student, you could come for undergraduate, for university, and then go to graduate school, like get a PhD, and you could be here for 8 years in status the whole time, and therefore eligible to still apply for asylum, even though you've been here for a long time. As long as you maintain that valid student status the whole time, you can apply. Now, one caveat, one thing to consider with both of these exceptions, the change circumstance exception and the extraordinary circumstances exception to the 1-year filing deadline, is that you've got to go ahead and submit your asylum application within a reasonable amount of time after the changed circumstance occurs or after the extraordinary circumstance ends. So for a student or a person on a business visa, once that status stops, like you finish your university program, you have to submit your asylum application within a reasonable period of time. And reasonable period of time isn't really defined, but as a general rule of thumb, you can think of it as, if you file your application within a month of that status ending, you'll be okay. That's totally reasonable. If you get to be 3 months, 4 months, it starts to get a little bit more questionable. That might be reasonable, it might not. Anything after 6 months is probably not going to be reasonable unless there are other circumstances that may help you. But generally, you want to get it within like a month, I would say, of that extraordinary circumstance ending. Okay, so that's the 1-year filing deadline. So if you've been here less than a year and you're thinking about filing for asylum, you should do it before that 1-year deadline because you might be completely barred.